You begin to see them on rallies on top of cars. What is a president doing on top of a car? Are we at an election period? What is a minister doing on rallies? A whole minister that is supposed to serve the people is found campaigning for people. What are we really doing as a nation? Mere talks. Ni noma, si noma. Ni fire, si fire. What are you saying? What are you saying? You know, me, I don't know. I don't know if me, I'm the one that has, my brain has a problem. Now you look at the Prince of Dubai. Do you see him on top of cars? Do you see the Chinese president on top of cars? Do you see the Russian president on top of cars? Is it entering your brain? Do you see the American president on top of cars?
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for your greatest support. Now, fellow Kenyans, I would like to say this, that you know, sometimes we fail to get it right, or the leaders fail to get it right, especially the president and maybe his circle. You can't talk about, you can't be talking about, you know, wanting to make Kenya a first world country, just like Singapore, and yet when you try to look at the thing that Singapore did that made them a first world country, it's totally different from what you're planning to do or what you're putting in place in order to make sure that Kenya becomes like Singapore. I'm saying this because Bishop John C.W. is saying something here which I would like us to listen to from the beginning up to the end. You know, I do say that if we have such people who openly discuss these things, or maybe who openly say things as they are, then I don't think if we'll be having any problem. The problem is that the people that we have, yes, they have voice, but they don't use it. Like, they can't put things right. Kuna wale ambao wanataka kutetea serikali, kuna wale ambao, because, you know, kuna ile woga, what if, you know, there is always that thing of what if, you know, what if this happens, how will they react, you see? But if we have people who just come out boldly and talk about things the way they are, then I think Kenya will be in a better place and a better position. So I want you to watch this from the beginning up to the end, and then after watching it, please don't forget to click the subscribe button. You can also tell me where exactly you're watching this video from. Please watch this.
I took it upon myself to try and build through this case, not necessarily just speaking concerning Kenya, but talking to the African platform, or rather to the global divide, of same matters that are affecting our nations. And so the scripture says, all hard work brings profit, but mere talk only leads to poverty. The reason I chose this scripture is because as you look at the African culture and how politics is expressed, you realize it is more of a talk rather than a deed. And so the scripture here is trying to reject the concept of mere talks. Actually, another verse says this: in all labor there is profit, but idle chatter leads only to poverty. The word idle chatter is the same word, mere talks. And if you look at it from a political point of view, politicians have mastered a technique that knows that if we just talk to them, Africans like listening. Africans can listen to anything. Africans can even listen to a dog barking. Like if a dog is on the street and is barking, Africans can just sit and listen to a dog barking. I was doing an analysis of the percentage of rumor that comes from within Africa. I mean, a lady just sits there. You wake up in the morning, go sit next to a shop of a different person, only to listen to rumor. Sit there, talk nothing, say nothing. And so, because of that particular deficiency, that weakness has elevated a bunch of ignorant, foolish men into power, simply because they know that Africa just likes listening. So this scripture here narrates what happens to a people that only likes listening to mere talk. It says, mere talk leads only to poverty. Do you remember the last time your member of parliament came to your zone? You remember what he told you? Can you compare it with what he has done? You remember the president of your nation, what he told you? Can you compare it to what he has done? Do you remember what the governor told you? Can you compare it to what he has done? In other words, before they come to the elective positions, there is what they say. And we as Christians and we as Muslims or whatever you are, the concept of mere talk should be something we must be very careful to look at and to know that it does not lead to any building of a nation. Mere talk, it leads to poverty. And no wonder why most of us African nations are poor. Because every time you see a leader speaking, they have mastered a way of speaking. Even when they are speaking nonsense, there is still people listening to nonsense. You know very well they will not build that road. You know very well they will not build that house. You know very well they will not build that hospital. But because it's an African syndrome, we just appear on rallies Monday morning at 10. The person that is talking to you has a salary. The people he's talking to you do not even have food in the evening. And so we must be able to clearly categorize leaders from politicians. A leader is a person that wants to build others. And most of the time a politician is a person that wants others to build him. And so we must be able to clearly subdivide this culture of labor that brings profit and begin to look at it from that labor point of view, that it is what you do that tells us who you become. It's not necessarily what you say. And so when you begin to look at our leaders, presidents, members of parliament, and I'm talking across the divider, I mean across all Africa, when you see how they talk during rallies, they sound so intelligent, but truly the weakness is evident and visible. I started using this scripture to explain, as I've seen our president RUTO, I've seen several presidents across the world. Some of them normally go to nations for what you call benchmarking. And it's good to go benchmark. We have presidents also of nations that have become superpowers that also went to nations to benchmark. But unfortunately, when you look at benchmarking from an African concept, I tend to believe that it is just an outing. It has nothing to do with a becoming. Most of the people that go to benchmark, they just go out, take their girlfriends, go out, enjoy. It's not necessarily what can we see out there that we can replicate in here and transform our people. And because of that, we did an analysis of all what we've had people saying. I would request the media team if you can be able to find a video of our president speaking about his desire to wanting to see Kenya as Singapore. Or maybe you hear other people saying they would like to see Kenya as China, Kenya as what, Kenya as what. If you can have a video of that, probably a little bit later, or if you have it now, you can look for it so that we can be able to play. But I've had a lot of leaders, especially within the African space, speak about their desire to want to see their nation evolve towards a certain nation that is already what the future of that particular nation looks like. But I would equally explain to you that it is not wisdom to expect an outcome without first studying what did it take to build it and develop it. And Africa has that mentality. And I've had a lot of people coming out and saying, Kenya is going to be like Singapore. Kenya is going to be like what? And so I decided to bring a report card of what it takes for that nation that you want to become to be like that nation. And so we are going to take case study, and I've told you time and again, for me personally, I don't focus on the problems. I mean, if we are always talking about problems, it's okay to speak about a problem because how will they know? But it is also better after you have spoken about a problem to also showcase the solutions around that particular problem. Now, before I continue, I would like us to look at this particular video of a leader somewhere in a nation. And if you are from that nation, don't bring us that mentality of speak about your nation. Then leave the continent. Remove your nation from the continent. Don't come and tell us those things that have no meaning. I would like us to look at this video and listen to the question this gentleman is asking, and at the point where I feel we have already gotten the answer, then we'll stop at that particular point. I would just like us to listen to this. The simple question that the person is being asked, they result to abuse, they result to saying you are a young boy, I mean, how old are you? That's not the question. Listen to the question and look at how the leader is answering.
Minister, I would like to interject. Monologue is quite long. So, at first, Minister, after you had gone to report me in front of President Tinubu and said all sorts, anyway, I am not beholden to you. My job is accountability.
You are too small for me to report you to the President.
No, but they are
You are too small
Minister,
for me to
Minister, let me speak. Minister, let me speak. I have empirical evidence. The world watched it on the commission of the project when you mentioned the questions I asked you to the president. That was reporting me to the president officially. And I insist on my question when I ask on cost.
Let me only address you.
Minister, you will not allow me speak. The problem is you will not allow me speak. You spoke for over 20 minutes, over 10 minutes.
Because you don't know what you are speaking.
But let me speak. Let me speak. You will not.
What your profession is.
You will not allow me speak. So my question still persists as regards the cost per kilometer. You cannot tell me that we don't have a right to know the cost per kilometer. Even if it's an undulating landscape, give us all the facts and the details of the cost per kilometer. That's all we'll ask for. Other questions as regards the loans taken. Let me finish.
No, I will keep quiet for you to damage information.
Let me finish.
Listen to me.
Minister, you will not allow me to speak. The minister will not allow me to speak.
No. Don't do that with me.
Minister will not allow me to speak.
I was in your studio.
Minister will not allow me to speak.
And when the first section was on, and I ran the figures. And what you're asking us is 750 kilometers of coastal highway. We should tell you cost per kilometer. So you multiply by 750. That's nonsensical.
No, so tell me the cost per kilometer. There's nothing too hard for you to tell me that figure. You've not still told me that figure. So I was right on that point. The second point...
Because you don't understand anything.
The second point I'm trying to make is
You don't understand anything. I'm a professor in this field.
Okay.
You don't understand anything.
What university gave you professorship in this field?
You cannot ask me to tell you a cost.
What university gave you professorship in engineering? I didn't know you were Professor Mai, Minister. I didn't know. So... Please,
I'm professor in practice.
In practice.
I'm professor in practice.
Okay.
I understand engineering very well.
So secondly,
and you have no knowledge of what you're asking.
If you will let me...
You have no knowledge.
If you will let me ask questions.
So you keep quiet.
Okay.
And then stop,
okay. Minister, it's all right. Keep dignifying yourself and let the world see you for who you are. If you allow me speak, the other 100 kilometers that you said they've added to it, we would like to know the cost per kilometer of that one. And the Winsome Homes, the case is in court. Now, I would like to know the cost per kilometer for that one. I would like to also know the over 700 billion first tranche of loan you guys got for this project. Has the money been spent? How was the money deployed? I would also like to know. I would also like to know the terms of that loan. All right? How many years? What's the payback period? What's the payback moratorium of that loan? And for the Winsome Homes, isn't it interesting that as somebody that's been a governor in the state, you know the law, a case is in court, and then you're coming to talk about the details of the cases in court. Because you denied that the case was not in court. Now you've already accepted that the case is in court. So is it not just better you thrash it out with the woman that has been reporting a case in public that we all heard, and I ask you questions based on that?
In certain cases in court, you say, you do no case submission. Rufai does not know what he's talking. And I think he should come to learn, one, how to talk. Number two.
He answered the question. How have the loan been spent? What's the cost per kilometer of these new 100 kilometers? How much is it going to cost? And how has the cost been spent? Okay.
Number one, this guy makes me, it makes me, to laugh, at a very high level of ignorance. I was in Edo State, and I said, listen, the president has directed, 100 kilometers of the coastal highway to pass through Edo State. And this man is asking me how much per kilometer. There has not been a soil report on it. And so why are you asking me, is it to name a child or to do a birthday for a child that is still in the belly of, a mother? That's what he said. So, and he's doing it, what is the cost per kilometer? In this kind of project, you are not dealing with a cost per kilometer. You can't say this is an average cost per kilometer. So I'm teaching you English now. You can talk about an average cost per kilometer because every 1 kilometer is different in cost from the other kilometer. So you can talk about cost, average cost per kilometer. Now, Rufai, that project has not been designed. The soil report is not out. That process is ongoing. And when that is done, the ministry will do their own evaluation. We now go to BPP and ask for selective tendering of the project. And when people have tendered, then we will now evaluate and send back to BPP. BPP will now evaluate and we send back to Federal Executive Council. It is at the end of Federal Executive Council approval that we'll be able to say this project is costing this amount and the average cost is this amount. Did I answer you?
Okay, so you have not designed that project, yes. What about the cost per kilometer of the one you have done thus far? Can you also tell us the details of the cost per kilometer and the over 700 billion Dutch bank loan? Can you also tell us more about that? Has that loan been used? What part of that loan have been used? And what are the terms of that loan?
Yes, these are elementary questions. And, it makes no sense. A process is ongoing. Payments is being made, and you are saying, how has this money been utilized? The money is meant for the project, and the money will be paid according to work done. When a certificate is generated, and that certificate, is approved, through a process.
Do you realize that is not a passerby? That's like, it's not someone on the road, on the highway. That's a Nigerian minister of what? Minister of Works. Can someone confirm to me in the department? Godfrey, that's a minister of works, if I'm not wrong, right? His name is it David? A minister. Now, can I ask you a question? If you are following online, what was the question? Do you remember the scripture we started with? What was the question that he was being asked? How much is the cost per kilometer? Of course, we are not fools to know. We know what you call soil sampling, testing of the land, all those things we know. We are not ignorant. We are not saying what is the actual cost. The question is, give us an average. Even if someone would ask you, how much is the cost per kilometer? You're supposed to say, an average, looking at the fact that you're saying you're a professor. In my professionalism as a self-proclaimed professor, I've been doing roads, or I've heard my friends are doing roads. Normally, it's between this and this, but it may vary based on the soil report, settling people in a different location, assuming the road might be passing there. We are not fools, we understand. It might take a different turn looking at fact that some places the water table is high, so we will need to use more concrete to settle the water so that it doesn't crack. We understand all that. We are not ignorant. The question is very simple. What is the cost per kilometer? Look at the answer they are giving. Can someone tell me the answer? You are a fool. Elementary questions. Now, let's go back to the scripture. What the scripture was. Can you put back the scripture? This is what the scripture we read. This is what the scripture we read. Put another version so that they understand. I want to ask the word idol. I want the word mere words. I want that Bible verse so that we can have better understanding. It says that works bring profit, but mere talks lead to poverty. Mere talks. That's one minister in a nation giving mere talks. He abuses him. That is what? He was doing elementary questions. What? You are not making sense. Answer the question. Mere talks lead to poverty. So when you see your nation has leaders, and these are the kind of leaders we have, expect poverty on the highest volume. Now, after that, I really hope our media department is able to capture this particular video very well, because there are things I'm seeing here like it's hanging. I really hope. Now, I'd like us to take the second video. Let's come back home. And let's take the second video. And let's look at what... Remember, mere talks lead to poverty. So today I'm giving you examples of mere talks. Now, sometimes you look at people before they come to power, they sound this, they sound this, they say that. And those of you that are always in a hurry to talk before reasoning, remember, there is a distance between your brain and your mouth. That distance, you use it to reason. When you think, you reason. You see what you're thinking, you smell what you're thinking, you hear what you're thinking before you speak what you're thinking. Now, I would like us to look at the second video and let me know what you are hearing.
Sina Rikijiti tulikubaliana. Yeye ajenge mlima, mimi nijenge Western. Haiwezekani kwamba tukua na candidate wa DCP hapa. Hiyo ni uchapulizi, hiyo ni ukora, tuwezi kubali. Ama namna gani watu wetu? Candidate wa DCP asimame kule, candidate wetu asimame hapa, tukue strong, au pia ukue strong, tukutane kwa meza ya wanaume.
What that man is saying, can you repeat that video and make sure the video is appearing here?
Sina Rikijiti tulikubaliana. Yeye ajenge mlima, yeye ajenge mlima, mimi nijenge Western. Haiwezekani kwamba tukua na candidate wa DCP hapa. Hiyo ni uchapulizi, hiyo ni ukora, tuwezi kubali. Ama namna gani watu wetu? Candidate wa DCP asimame kule, candidate wetu asimame hapa, tukue strong, au pia ukue strong, tukutane kwa meza ya wanaume.
Ask a question. What are you saying? First of all, that's a tribal statement. You stand at your place, we stand at our place, and then let's meet on the table of men. What are you saying? What are you saying? What are you saying? Mere talks leads to poverty. Now, meanwhile, the benchmarkers, what someone is asking me, what is that gentleman saying? They are saying we cannot have the same party standing on an area where is not their tribe. Let him, they have an agreement with the former deputy president, let him stand in the mountain and let me stand here, let's be strong here and you be strong there, and then we meet at the table of men. So let me ask you, and then he says, oh, what do you think, my friends? Now let me ask you a question. After you have spoken like that, the people that heard you, are they eating? Are they sleeping well? Do they have bursaries? How are the school structures? Mere talks lead to poverty. And Africa is a master at what? Mere talks. Unnecessary talks. You begin to see them on rallies on top of cars. What is a president doing on top of a car? Are we at an election period? What is a minister doing on rallies? A whole minister that is supposed to serve the people is found campaigning for people. What are we really doing as a nation? Mere talks. Ni noma, si noma. Ni fire, si fire. What are you saying? What are you saying? You know, me, I don't know. I don't know if me, I'm the one that has, my brain has a problem. Now, you look at the Prince of Dubai. Do you see him on top of cars? Do you see the Chinese president on top of cars? Do you see the Russian president on top of cars? Is it entering your brain? Do you see the American president on top of cars? But in Africa, unnecessary languages. And I've told you time and again, because Africans like listening. Even when Satan is speaking. We will do, we will do. The Bible speaks about it. Put a scripture again for them. Very important that you understand what leads to poverty. Mere talks. A nation will be poor when its leaders talk more than they work. Now, I've heard that we want to make Kenya like Singapore. I would like to give you a case report of how Singapore became Singapore. In 1963, I think September, I studied a lot about the nation. So when I speak, I don't just speak about Kenya. In 1963, Singapore, with the same time with Kenya, became independent. And in case you're not aware, unlike Kenya, Singapore has no meaningful minerals, at least as per today. Researchers have tried researching the land. There is nothing much. So Singapore got its independence at the same moment with Kenya, 1963, assuming that those that says we got it earlier, it's fine. Let's just use the documented time frame. Now at 1963, I will need to give you the structure of Singapore. They did not have a military. They have no meaningful minerals. Education was at its lowest. I'm talking about the Singapore you want it to become, because you can't say you want to become like someone without studying how that person became themselves. If you're going to become like a person, you must study what that person did to become like that person. They don't have meaningful minerals. They do not have, they couldn't speak or read. They couldn't do anything. Singapore was destined to poverty just by the fact of looking at a particular nation. They did not have a military. So, a president then by the name Lee Kuan Yew, something like that, he came up and he started to strategize Singapore. He wanted to make Singapore a first world nation. Now, remember, it is a third world nation. Same time Kenya has been independent. And I've seen a lot of people say, we are going to make Kenya like what? We are going to make... Don't worry. Have you studied how that nation became it? And before you run to say housing, just hold on. So Singapore knew that it did not have the ability to compete. I will need to even explain to you the number. It is less 7 million people. In other words, they have not even reached 7 million Singaporeans. And the land is so small that it's just on an island. A very little land. So the owner now realizes that he wants to make Singapore what it is. And so all the people approximately 16 and above, they are told to join the military. They start making their military. Then they come and realize that Singapore needs to speak English. So they make 4 major languages among the Singaporeans that will be able to speak. Among them is English, Chinese, and 2 other languages. So they begin to push English into schools. And I'm not claiming that you have to do English. I'm just showing you the strategy of what made Singapore, Singapore. And I beg you to listen. So they began to build those particular things. And then they finally now got to a point and realized we would want Singaporeans to own. And this is where you see, especially the Kenyan people that are going to benchmark, they now start talking about the housing project. Before you go there, let me explain it. So the government created a fund where people would give towards that fund, and then they would sell those houses to the people for very cheap, which is, you might say, more or less like what is happening in Kenya. But before you go there, Singapore had 4 major positions to play in order to deal. Number 1, it was the education system of Singapore. And in case you are not aware, Singapore's system of education has been ranked the best or among the best. They decided they are going to teach English and they are going to invest in education. Number 1. Number 2, they are going to invest in housing. Their whole idea of removing the ghettos. Number 3, which was actually the first thing, was to fight corruption. And guess what he did? At some point, a Singaporean minister went and gave a tender for the road. And they decided to give him a kickback. Not much money. The matter was followed through and they found out. And so the president was on his way. And I want you to listen. Those of you that just speak without reasoning. Come, let us reason. Don't just say you want your marriage to be like those people. And you don't ask, how did you stay married for 55 years? It's foolishness for you to say on an earthshell what you need to do to become like other people without looking at the skeleton of what made them what they are. So now when the minister took the money and ate, the president heard about it and he was on his way. And you need to go and do the fact checking. By the time he's getting, when this person, the minister, is seeing him coming on the window, he took a drug and decided to kill himself. Reason was because corruption was going to be dealt with head on. And it was the first thing the Singaporean president decided to fight. It was not housing project. So if you do housing project, if you do real estate, if you do industries, if you do education, and then you fight corruption, the last thing, it means you can't fight corruption because you are giving corruption wings. Corruption is in housing project, corruption is in healthcare, corruption is in education, corruption is in industries. So what the president set out to do, his first agenda was to fight corruption. He created laws that were going to be very difficult, and I would like you to go and study the constitution of Singapore. Very difficult. One of the things with the laws that were set out in Singapore is that you cannot borrow to pay. You can only borrow to invest. What do I mean? Look at Kenya, for example. Maybe, for example, the teachers have no money. You go and borrow to pay teachers. How do you expect to get the money back? There is a law in Singapore where you cannot borrow to pay off. You can only borrow to invest, and they have a cap. You cannot borrow beyond this, else the nation will become indebted to others. So I'm showing you the strategy that many people do not understand. So when you're busy saying Singapore, they fought corruption as their first agenda, they put resources in education, they did a well-trained military. Do you understand that? And then they went for the housing project. They created a fund whereby everyone, I think it was approximately 20%, where everyone was mandated to put resources, but equally speaking, any Singaporean dollar that they use, the president came out and showed the people transparency.